It's 2021, and never before have we been so connected to these things. The devices that were originally just for calling, or maybe sending the odd text, have become our one-way lifeline to all things media, specifically social media. My name is Paritosh Joshi, and I'm a research assistant at the Northwestern Feinberg School of Medicine, and I'm here today to talk about the relationship between social media and our mental health. Before I get started with my talk, let me get a quick show of hands. How many of you say that you currently use at least one social media site? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat? Great. Now, how many hours a day would you say you use social media on average? Let's go 0 to 2 hours. How about 2 to 4 hours? Great. How about 4 plus? Awesome. Now, last question. How many of you would say that the amount of time used social media has gone up since COVID hit? Great. So here's a chart of the percent of US adults who currently use at least one social media site. And as you can see, not very many people use social media about a decade and a half ago, but about 70% of US adults use it now. And we could see that social media use has dramatically risen over the past decade and a half. There's about 1 billion monthly active Instagram users. And based on current projections for social media use, the average person is estimated to spend 6 years and 8 months of their life on social media. Now, don't get me wrong, there's many benefits to social media. It's easier to communicate with friends, it's easier to share content, and it's also easier to develop relationships with like-minded people. It's also created a space for us to be vulnerable and really connect with other people, such as the Till Tomorrow challenge that happened last year, where everyone posted a goofy picture of themselves on Instagram and left it up for 24 hours. For the record, this is what I would have posted. This is me back in high school trying to look super tough. I know, it's pretty cringeworthy. Luckily, this picture is only staying up for 5 seconds. And I bet as some of you saw that, you laughed. And that's the point. Social media is intended to bring us together through our collective human experience. Now, while there are benefits to social media, there have also been some drawbacks as well. For example, research has found that greater social media use may result in negative mental health problems and worsen stress levels. Personally, I started using social media due to peer pressure in part. Everyone said I had to get Instagram so I could see all the funny videos that were being posted, or that I had to get Snapchat so I could see all these cool pictures or any cool posts that people were making. And as I got these apps, I told myself that I had to maintain strong self-control in order to make sure that I wouldn't keep on checking them so often. But even as I tried to limit my time and not check social media so frequently, I ended up refreshing my screen every 5 seconds just to see who liked my post or just to see who commented. And if I, as someone who was intentionally regulating the amount of time they were spending on social media, was struggling, and what was it doing to other people? And it raised the question, is social media bringing us together or dividing us further and further apart as a society? Through applying this idea known as the butterfly effect, we can see that incremental changes in social media use over time have caused larger macroscopic disorder in society. Today, I would like to talk about 3 main factors influencing the relationship between social media and mental health, and by fighting their impact, we can take back our agency. The first being how social media can lead to anxiety or envy and acts as an avoidant coping mechanism. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware that social media has clearly had a very big impact on us, and it impacts how we feel about ourselves, but frequently it goes too far. For example, there are specific mental health issues related to specific applications, such as Facebook envy, which is the tendency to be jealous of your friends' activities on social media. There's Snapchat dysmorphia, which is the tendency for people to want to resemble their filtered images in real life. And there's Instagram anxiety, which is application users' anxiety related to Instagram itself. A recent study found that when people experience Instagram anxiety or engage in social comparison, it is associated with poor psychological well-being. We could see that when people use these platforms, it can amplify their insecurities as they constantly desire to know what is going on. But there's another factor to this, and it's that social media can act as an avoidant coping mechanism. How many of you are guilty of wanting to go on Snapchat or Instagram for 5 minutes, you end up being on there for about 15 or 20 minutes, right? We're all guilty of this because these apps present a way of escaping oneself from the realities that exist in the world. And we could see that this leads to a vicious cycle of wanting to go on social media for an extended period of time, going back to your actual task, and then wanting to go back for more time on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever app you're using that will distract you from your actual responsibilities. But social media use can also be linked to other harmful behaviors, which is why recent research hints that emerging adults who frequently engage in substance use with their friends may spend more time documenting these behaviors on Snapchat. And that's probably a good thing because you most likely don't want to post a video of yourself taking a shot of tequila on LinkedIn unless you never want to get a job. Regardless, social media was never intended to have these negative effects. So what is the culprit that makes us feel this way about ourselves? Well, it's actually the way we use these apps while we are on them. Which is why next I would like to talk about passive versus active involvement. Now it's clear that social media does not just impact our mind, it impacts our entire body. And we can see this reflected in how we engage with these platforms. Passive involvement refers to scrolling through social media feeds or monitoring others without direct engagement. Active involvement, on the other hand, refers to commenting, messaging, maybe even sharing your favorite meme. Any behavior that allows you to directly engage with users. Active social media involvement is considerably better than passive involvement. In a recent study on adolescents, active involvement was shown to be related to fewer symptoms of anxiety, while passive involvement was shown to be related to greater symptoms of anxiety and increased emotional distress. Passive social media use is also linked to greater depressive symptoms and loneliness. So we could see that allowing ourselves to succumb to the content on these platforms will bring us negative emotions. And it's more meaningful to actually have real, deep conversations with other users. But there's a third and more important factor to assess. And it's that these apps do not unite us at all, but inevitably foster a climate of animosity towards other people. Which is why I'd like to talk about competition and comparison. Now, I'm sure you all are aware that people go on social media to at least some degree for validation or just to see how much clout they have. It's because these applications provide people with an opportunity to constantly measure themselves against others, right? How many of you are guilty of wanting to go and check how many Instagram followers you have or how many people last viewed your Snapchat story, right? It's very, very tempting because we care about getting the right image, the right angle, and taking it at the right time. You know the first picture you're taking for Instagram will not be the last. You might take even 5, 10, 20 more. Who knows? You might even fill up your whole camera roll just trying to decide. It's because we care about how we present ourselves to other people. And we have standards for how we judge everyone because we live in an appearance-based society. And at the end of the day, we care about our presentation and getting that degree of acknowledgement from other people that we look attractive. Regardless of whether we like it or not, social media affects how we view ourselves as well as others, and it can hurt our own body image. Social media exploits the innate vulnerability of ourselves to want to have what others have, and as a result, it can have long-lasting impacts on us. At the end of the day, it makes us place this undue burden of always having to be at our best and always having to look attractive. Because if we don't, the whole world might laugh at us. And that is the last thing that we want. So, what does this mean for all of us? Are we screwed? Social media just going to control our lives for as long as we know it? No. In fact, social media has done very, very beneficial things for us as well. Am I saying we need to hashtag abolish social media and totally eliminate it? No, and I don't want to see that trending on Twitter. Social media performs many important functions for us, such as allowing ourselves to communicate with family, or even just following the news. All we have to do is take charge of the platforms ourselves, and not allow social media to control us, but allow ourselves to control social media. In fact, there are 3 tangible solutions we can implement right now. The first being restricting the amount of time spent on social media. A recent study found that restricting the amount of time spent on social media to 30 minutes a day is proven to decrease loneliness and depression. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, that, whoa, 30 minutes? That's less than half an episode from season 8 of Game of Thrones. That is way too little. All right, that's a fair point. But I bet a good number of you who said that you use social media use it for multiple hours a day. And by slowly decreasing the amount of time you spend on these platforms, you will take charge of not only the amount of time you spend, but free up time to dedicate to other initiatives or other things that were originally being displaced by the amount of time you spent on social media. Second, it's important to prioritize active social media involvement over passive involvement. Comment, tag someone in a post, even share your favorite meme. Just make sure to interact with other users while you are on these platforms. Do not sit and stare, because that may make you more anxious and stressed. Remember, social media is intended to be social. And by going back to what social media was intended to be used for, we can maximize the amount of time and the amount of satisfaction that these platforms were intended to bring upon us. Number 3, it's important to minimize the use of social media as an avoidant coping mechanism and instead use it to learn through online forums such as Facebook, Twitter, even Reddit. By having meaningful conversations with other people where we can actually talk about ideas, we can maximize human connection and avoid less shallow conversations. And through any of these little changes, you will not only improve your mental health and feel better, but you will engage other people and cause them to feel better as well. And through applying the idea of the butterfly effect, we can cause a ripple effect and enhance the status of everyone around the globe to take charge of these platforms. Thank you.